we need to reinforce what we stand for so that everyone who comes to us understands why we're different. That's why today we're unveiling a series of updates across our policies.
Etsy recently made some changes with their house rules, as they call it. And in this video, I'll break down the 4 most important things that affect us print-on-demand sellers. Let's get into it. All right, so the first one is basically how they define handmade is my perception of it. Before, you had to comply with their handmade policy, as they call it. And you basically, for us print-on-demand sellers, that basically just meant that you had to put some kind of design touch in the designs themselves. You can't just, for instance, take a design from creating Fabrica and put that on top of a blank product and sell that on Etsy. That's not allowed. What they've done now is basically that they just made it clear as to what can actually be sold on Etsy and what their handmade policy actually is. That's my interpretation of it. As in the video, they just state that they haven't changed the rules, they have just clarified them. There are 4 different parts to this. It's made by a seller, it's designed by a seller, which we as print-on-demand people on Etsy, this is the part that we fall into, so this segment. There's also the hand-picked by a seller, and then there's sourced by a seller. Now, I won't go through thoroughly each and every part of this, as what we mainly talk about on this channel is print-on-demand, so I'll mainly go into the design by seller part here. But as a brief overview, made by a seller encompasses physical items made by a seller by hand or using personalized computerized tools. This is basically if you're either like crafting something with your physical hands or if you're making computerized tools. So let's say that you make a furniture and you basically use tools to make that, but basically handmade, like with your own 2 hands. Designed by sellers is what we fall into. Basically, we create original designs and they are then produced and printed by a third party or offered as a digital download. But what we do here is POD, so we create the designs and they are produced and printed by a production partner like Printify or Printful. Handpicked is basically their vintage category that they've had for a long time. So they basically had handmade items, vintage or craft supplies was their whole thing before. And this is where vintage items basically fall into. Just to quote this, it says vintage items, items from nature, and certain collections of items that a seller personally has selected and curated for sale. They've had this vintage topic on Etsy for a long time. I haven't sold any vintage items myself, but this is where basically you personally select and curate the items that you then find and have them for sale. Vintage items is, I think, they have to be like 20 years old, I think. Let's see, yeah, 20 plus years old at minimum. That's a brief overview of the handpicked by a seller. And now sourced by a seller. That is items that enable buyer creativity, including craft and party supplies, and items personalized with a buyer's custom text or image. Now, this part can definitely like affect us since we do POD, which I think it's kind of weird that they put this here and not in designed by a seller, but whatever. As I mentioned before, they've always been about like handmade items, vintage items, or craft supplies. And this is where the craft supplies basically fall into. But this is the main thing that concerns us, designed by a seller. We mainly talk about POD, so I won't go too much into the details of the digital designs, but I've talked about this before on the channel. What they always want to see basically is that you make a design or that you add a personal touch to it. So let's say that you find items on the site like Creative Fabrica. I use Creative Fabrica for all my elements. Apart from that, I use that as one element in my designs. Then I basically design the rest so that it's its own thing. You can't just take something off of Creative Fabrica, like right off the bat, and just put that up on Etsy. That's not what they've been about their whole time. That's mainly the thing here. It needs to be like a seller's own original designs. And we can use a production partner like Printify or Printful for that. The most important thing with this is that we always just disclose this within the listing, and that's basically that we just toggle on that it's made by another company, and then that you toggle which production partners that you actually are using to create this product. What they've basically done here is that they've just taken everything that they've already had and things that has just said handmade before now says for us POD users, designed by your store name basically. So they basically just clarify what the store does. Another part of Etsy overall, another huge thing that actually affects the world is AI. And they've taken a clear stance now with their AI stuff. And when it comes to AI, that's the second part of this. You can basically do your own creations as long as it's your own prompts. The most important thing about using AI art and stuff like that, and using AI within your designs, is that you disclose within the listing description if an item is created with the use of AI. So this line right here, that's the most important part when it comes to using AI. So you can use AI for, like, I've been very hesitant to use AI myself because they haven't actually taken a stance to it, and AI is most likely trained on like copyrighted work. And in my experience, as having experience within the music industry, if you make like a cover song of another song, and you make a different like remix or something like that of a song, it's still a derivative work of another work. And in order to release a derivative work, you technically need a license by the copyright holder. That's how it is when it comes to music. But with AI, it's a bit different, but that's, since I know that previously, like, I've tested out and fiddled around with AI stuff, but I haven't really done much with it, mainly because of that, because I don't know what they classify it as. Like, do they classify it as a derivative work? Do they class it as a transformative work? Like, what is it, since it's hard to know what the work is in and of itself. Now that we're here and we have the guidelines from Etsy, we know that as long as you basically use your own prompts, creations that were generated using AI tools based on a seller's original prompts, as long as you basically use that, then it's fine. But you need to just disclose it within the description of the listing. An example of this would be like, basically, if the first line in the description could be something like, this is a fantasy scene based on this and this and this, created using the world of AI or something like that. But you just need to disclose it somewhere within the listing's description that AI has been used to make this listing. This is an evolving thing. This could change over time. Etsy in and of itself has branded themselves to be. It's basically the home for personalized goods and like custom items. So how I would use AI going on in the future is basically use AI for like elements and stuff like that, like specific elements that you want, and then you add text or another element to that to make sure that it's your own original work, not just standalone AI art. As I use Creative Fabrica, basically, I just take elements from Creative Fabrica, import that into Canva, and then I fiddle around with it a little bit, maybe like add a text element to it to make my own original design from that. That's something that's kept me going, like, without any copyright issues or anything like that on Etsy. So I would highly recommend to, if you're gonna use AI, and if you use AI, like, add your own creative stuff to it. And what I mean by that is add another element apart from the AI creation itself. Add like a text element to it to make it your own original design, not just a standalone AI art. So that's basically the AI part of this, which I think was really important to know. But here's the big chunk of it all. But before we go into that, if you found this video valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe, and hit that bell notification button, as that lets YouTube know that you actually found it valuable. I'm trying to help as many people as I can with my Etsy print-on-demand content, so doing that will make sure that it spreads to everyone. And in return, I'll make sure to do the best Etsy content that I can for you guys. Let's get back into it. Now, the big part, as I mentioned, and that's mockups. When it comes to this stuff, there's been a whole debacle and a whole like thing on YouTube overall about like, you get banned if you use mockups on Etsy. And honestly, I've gone through this previously in another video. My previous interpretation has always been, as long as you accurately depict the item that the customer is receiving, then you're good. So like, you shouldn't, like, for instance, buy mockups that are so altered that like the color of the, like, for instance, the sweatshirt or t-shirt is like off the bat. So that's one thing. The seller is always responsible for like accurately depicting the end product to the final customer. Let's say, for instance, that you sell a Comfort Colors t-shirt, but you display it as a Bella Canvas t-shirt, then that won't accurately depict the item, and that is basically wrong. And that's how I've always interpreted it before, as they haven't like explicitly said that you can't use mockups for your own POD items. I don't think that's ever been an issue, as that's like, I mean, I use mockups myself. I preach about using mockups, and it's one of the absolute main variables to actually selling on Etsy, is having the correct mockups to use, especially in your thumbnail. And now we're here. So I'm just gonna skim through this. This part right here just unveils all of this. So photos of items made with production partners like Printify or Printful, or whichever one we use. I use Printify, but a production partner. When working with production partners, the requirements for listing photos vary depending on the item. If you design a unique item as a piece of furniture, clothing, or a book, and a production partner manufactures it for you, use a real photo of the physical end product. Here's where we come in. If you create an original design, such as artwork or a pattern that a production partner prints onto a base item like a t-shirt or a mug, you may use a stock photo mockup to illustrate the end product buyers will receive. So yes, we can use mockups. that's not an issue. But there's a caveat to this, and that's the last line here, and that's that the buyer personalized items must follow the guidelines in the personalized or customized section above, which is this one. And that's where the most important part of this equation, basically the most important part of this video that I want to bring up, and that's this part about using mockups on personalized items. So for personalized or customized items, like custom drawings, monogrammed accessories, or t-shirts featuring a buyer's custom text, your first image must feature a finished customized item similar to what buyers will receive. This helps buyers visualize what their custom made item will look like when completed. It is prohibited to use a photo of the blank product or a mockup with placeholder text like "your text here" or "custom text" as the main image. Computer-generated mockups may be used in additional listing images to showcase customization options. Just make sure your first image is the real deal. If you would like to use a buyer's review photo as a listing image, you need permission from the buyer. This is kind of annoying, honestly, at least for me. Like, I preach a lot about doing custom listings and like custom designs to find out which design style actually works, and just to have the highest conversion rate possible in the beginning to get rolling with Etsy. Now, with this update, that puts that whole thing into question, and that's because of this part here. They say that it is prohibited to use a photo of the blank product or a mockup with placeholder text, like "your text here." And I've preached a lot about this before to do this. Another thing to this is that here, your first image must feature a finished, customized item similar to buyers will receive. This whole line here and this whole line here, your first image must feature a finished, customized item similar to what buyers will receive. And this line, if you would like to use a buyer's review photo as a listing image, you need permission from the buyer. This implies to me that they want basically like, let's say that you got a photo review from a custom listing that I talked about previously. Then you can use that image that a customer provided in the photo as long as you have permission from the buyer to use that as the thumbnail within the photo. The thing that they actually want, which is what I'm perceiving from this, is that they want it to be the real deal, whatever that means. Like, usually with legal text, there are like pointers to what specific things actually mean. So your first image must feature a finished, customized item. This could basically mean that you can have use a mockup, and then instead of using like having it say custom text, it can basically say whatever a customer has bought previously, you can put that on top of the mockup. And for some reason that should enable them to be able to picture it better with their own text, which doesn't make sense. Because in my mind, that will only confuse people if they see another person's personalized item. If they can personalize the whole thing, as I've talked about previously, and they see another customer's item within like the search bar, they scroll the first page really fast. And if they see another customer's item, it really doesn't make sense. But if they see something that just says "your text here," for instance, it makes more sense, because then they know, okay, we can put our text in that listing. To me, that would just confuse me as a customer. But this line, as I mentioned, your first image must feature a finished, customized item similar to what buyers will receive. This could basically entail that, as I said, that you can use a mockup, but with a design that a customer actually has bought previously. This whole thing here, yeah, computer-generated mockups may be used in additional listing images to showcase customization options. Just make sure your first image is the real deal. And then they have a reference of using a buyer's review photo as a listing image. This implies that it should be like a real photo of a real, like not a mock-up, but basically a photo of someone's actual custom product that they've ordered. And this also doesn't really make sense, because if you just list the item and you don't have any, then you need to put that up on Etsy. Like you don't have any images to put up since you haven't sold any. And I mean, if you would actually need to buy samples, like it would make the whole thing a lot harder. If you just simplify this, if you would see another person's custom like mug where it says some weird stuff that you have no relation to, like I would at least think that it says, if you just see that within the thumbnail of the first page, at least I would think that, okay, this person sells this specific mug with that specific saying. I mean, you could use something like within the image that just tells everyone that you can customize this to everything you want, like an arrow or something that just says text customizable or something like that. But all in all, it just confuses me, because here it kind of says that can use a mockup. At least it doesn't explicitly say that you can use a mockup, because they don't define what a finished, customized item similar to what buyers will receive is. This could entail mockups in and of itself with just a design that you actually made for someone. But this whole thing just kind of entails that you should use like real images of someone's actual product, like either order a sample with some custom text, or that you take a customer's photo review basically and use that as the main image. But I mean, like, thumbnail is one of the main things that actually garners sales. So this really bugs me. As I mentioned, I've talked about this previously in my design video, and the principles of the design video still stay the same. You need to find like a design that actually works and then scale that out to different niches. But I would be very hesitant with these new changes to actually focus all of my efforts to only do custom text listings, since this is, to me at least, it kind of leaves a lot of gray area to it. I'll make an updated design video in regards to these changes on how to approach design now with these updates, as I honestly don't fully know what to make of this. I mean, it's not super clear. So I wish they would basically clarify this and actually like define what some of these sentences and words mean. Like, what is a finished customized item similar to what buyers could receive? That can be a mock-up with your design, as it's basically a photo of a finished customized item with your design on top of it. Those are just my thoughts. I just wanted to make a video and just state that with these changes, having like listings that just says your text here or something like that, like they explicitly say here, is not something that I would now recommend to do, at least not until this has been like cleared up basically. I'll make an updated design video for you guys in regards to these changes. Alright, so if you want to learn more about print on demand and Etsy, I suggest watching this video right here. And if there's any videos that you want to see next, just drop a comment down below and I'll do my best to help out. I'll see you in the next one.